Dr. Parvardhan and Dr. Sukhdev Roy. Dr. Patwardhan is a professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering at DI, and he obtained his bachelor's degree from DEI, master's degree from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and doctorate in electrical engineering from DEI. He has served DEI for nearly 20 years in various capacities and has shouldered several administrative responsibilities, including the Dean of the MTV Puram Satellite Campus. His research interests are soft computing, image processing, and quantum evolutionary algorithms. Dr. Patwardhan.
Thank you for the organizers for inviting me here. I know it's been a long day, and I'll tailor my talk accordingly. So we'll have more of applications to motivate the area and less of math equations. The talk is on quantum-inspired evolutionary algorithms for search and optimization. As the title indicates, evolutionary algorithms are well known to be good at search and optimization, but have their own shortcomings. What we are trying to do here is, we are trying to borrow ideas from quantum computing in order to speed up the search processes in evolutionary algorithms. This results in algorithms which are still in the classical domain. These algorithms are not in the quantum domain, so you can actually implement these algorithms and solve practical engineering problems. And the kind of problems that we have been doing and the kind of results that we've been getting, that's what I'm going to present in my talk. Before that, I'll briefly explain the concepts. To this audience, this is clear that the whole idea of quantum computing has emerged because you're expecting problems in NP complexity class, at least some of them, to be tractable. And where they are not, right now they are being used, their stochastic search techniques are being used. Engineering optimization problems especially fall in this class because most of them have real parameters, and in real parameters, every point in the real space is a possible solution. Now, when you're having so many of the possible solutions, finding optimal solutions becomes hard, especially because your functions in terms of constraint as well as objective function, they can be non-complex, they can be non-linear, they can be multimodal, they could have high dimensionality, they could have mixed parameters, some Boolean, some real, some integer, and so on. That's the kind of problems that are there. So the kind of solutions that have been attempted are classical solutions, enumeration, and evolutionary algorithms. Most successful out of these have been the evolutionary algorithms because they at least give you some kind of solution. Maybe a satisfying solution, may not be an optimal solution. These are algorithms which are guided by a principle of natural selection. They're quite simple in implementation, but they have some limitations. And those limitations are that they have premature convergence sometimes, sometimes they have slow convergence, and they're extremely sensitive to choice of parameters. So one of the efforts in trying to overcome such limitations is quantum-inspired evolutionary algorithms. As I stressed right at the beginning, quantum evolutionary algorithms are still population-based, probabilistic evolutionary algorithms, but they borrow concepts from quantum computing for higher represent power and robust search. These are the two main things that we are looking for in evolutionary algorithms when we are solving optimization problems. Higher representation power gives you greater characteristic of population diversity, and because there is greater characteristic of population diversity, your premature convergence problem is tackled. Because, again, because of higher representation power, you can now work with smaller populations than the ones that are used in evolutionary algorithms. Typical populations in evolutionary algorithms are of the order of few hundreds, and typical number of iterations where you have to run for hard problems is of the order of million. So that's a lot of computation that's required. So here you're trying to deal with smaller computation. So where are the two different? They are different because, as I said, EAs require a relatively large population, whereas in quantum evolutionary algorithms, you can even handle optimization problems with a single qubit string, because a single qubit string is enough to, in principle, represent the whole search space. The other important thing is that in evolutionary algorithms, once a solution comes up with a small objective function value, the probability of its surviving for the next generation becomes small. And so you could lose that solution. But maybe the fitness of that particular solution is bad, but a change in a couple of bits here and there could have given you a much better solution. In case of these techniques, since they're quite random in their operations, you might lose a solution which is quite near in the variable space to the optimal solution because it was quite far in the objective function space. That's where the problem is. So it's like searching for a needle in a haystack with the added problem that you don't have any torchlight. So in case of quantum evolutionary algorithms, what essentially we're trying to do is we're trying to maintain an indirect link through the qubit string, and this indirect link helps because it sort of encodes the history of the search, not just the previous generation, but whatever has happened in all the previous generations is sort of encoded in the qubit string, and that's where the benefit comes. So you don't have the problem of losing a good solution just because few bits were wrong and that resulted in a bad objective function value. So to this audience who's been listening about quantum computing for, since morning, this could be very clear that a qubit individual is represented by alphas and betas with the normalization condition satisfied. So in QEA, suppose you are looking for a binary string. That means your problem is for searching for the optimal binary string. Then the observation process is the process of generating a binary string by observing a qubit string. So based on the alphas and betas, we generate random numbers, and that's called observation, and we get a binary string. And then after having done this a few times, we see which qubit string resulted in the best solution, and we try to turn around the other qubit strings in the direction of the best qubit string. So that is done through quantum rotation operator as shown in this figure. So that's the basic quantum evolutionary algorithm. You observe, then evaluate your observed solutions, find out which is the best, and then upgrade your strings towards that qubit string out of your population which gave the best result, and then try to go on. This is the basic QEA algorithm, and there are lots of intricate details which I am not describing here, but the basics are covered by this description. So this we tried for the quadratic knapsack problem. The quadratic knapsack problem is the generalization of a knapsack problem where in a classical knapsack you're given n items whose profit is known, whose weight is known, and you are given a knapsack which has a capacity which is known, and you're trying to fill the items in such a way that you maximize your profits. Of course, constrained by the capacity of the knapsack. QKB extends this problem by introducing quadratic terms into the value computation. So your capacity constraint is unchanged, but the value is associated not only with each object, but also additional value for each pair of objects that are selected. since now the value of an object is also dependent on what other objects you select, heuristics become harder to design. And that's a good candidate for trying out QES. It arises in a variety of applications like selecting a number of satellite stations, finance, VLSI design, and so on. And since the classical QKB itself is, classical knapsack itself is hard, it's not very hard to show that quadratic knapsack is also NP hard. So some basic heuristics are there, but they don't really work very well. One way is to start with an empty knapsack and try to fill the knapsack, and the other way is to start with a full knapsack and try to remove the objects so that you lessen the profit least. So those are the two kinds of heuristics which are normally called primal and dual heuristics. We designed some operators, neighborhood operators for finding out neighborhood solutions, and also some adjust and repair operations. So that's the basic QEF framework which I showed you earlier, which is embellished now with these operators. So we tested this algorithm on the knapsack problems which are reported as benchmark instances by Julstrom in Gecko. So we tried 20 benchmark instances of each, 10 of each size, 100 objects and 200 objects. Notice that when you have 100 objects, your search space becomes 2 to the power 100. And we compared the performance with the evolutionary algorithms which were reported earlier in literature, and our quantum evolutionary algorithm is able to provide to hit the optimal solution almost every time. Only in one particular problem, which was particularly hard to crack in case of 100 objects, it could not for this particular method. Whereas for the 200 problem, again, it gave pretty good hit counts. Same way with 200 object instances, the optimal hits are pretty high. Mean profits are also much better than the greedy evolutionary algorithm and the naive evolutionary algorithm. So it's pretty consistent. Mean profits indicate the consistency with which it comes near the optimal solution. And same happened in case of 200 object instances also. The mean profits are much higher than the greedy and the naive. But the best part comes here in the minimum generations or iterations required to reach the optimal. Because there are two aspects to this: how good a solution you're getting and how fast you're getting to it. Because that will also mean that you'll be able to solve larger problems if you're getting to the optimal solution faster. So propose EA, in most of the time, the operators that we introduced along with the EAs, in the first iteration itself it got the solution. So that's the comparison. Now I illustrate this also on hypergraph coloring problem. This is in the context of algorithm engineering. In algorithm engineering, we are trying to merge ideas from theoretical performance guarantees and practical efficiency. Although these have been considered by the computer science community in isolated ways mostly. Now, algorithm engineering is a field where both communities are being brought together to point out where theory can benefit from practice and vice versa. So the idea is this, that you have an implementation, you perform experiments, you change your design, you do some analysis, then improve your implementation, and the cycle continues. And that hopefully leads to computational algorithms which are also provably good in terms of reaching the solutions. So that's the AE cycle. And that's how practice helps theory. You have a cycle of implementation, experiments, design, and analysis. Basically, the hypergraph is a generalization of a graph, where in a graph, edges are pairs of vertices, whereas hypergraphs have edges which could be any subset of the vertices. So therefore, you, any subset of 2 to the power v could be the set of edges, which makes hypergraphs having many more edges than the ordinary graphs. And what we are looking for is low discrepancy 2 colorings of the hypergraph of arithmetic progressions. In arithmetic progression, the hyper edges are decided by starting the arithmetic progression a plus id from every a with every I and with every d. So you have order n cube hyper edges. And in 2 colorings, the discrepancy is defined as follows. Each vertex is colored with one of the 2 colors. Once the vertices are colored, the discrepancy of an edge is the difference in the number of vertices with the same color. So you have a subset of vertices in one hyperedge. Out of these subset of vertices, some will be colored say red and the others will be colored blue. Now find the difference in these 2 numbers, and that's the discrepancy of this hyperedge. And the discrepancy of a hypergraph is the discrepancy of the edge with maximum discrepancy. The aim is to find a coloring with minimum discrepancy. Now, if you're dealing with n vertices, the number of ways in which you can color is 2 to the power n, and the number of hyperedges in your hypergraph is O(n) cube, and you're looking for the coloring with minimum discrepancy. The problem is again hard because in this example you have discrepancy 1 because you have 2 red dots and 1 green dot in one of the hyperedges. The problem is again very hard because heuristics are very, very hard to define because you don't know, if you change the coloring in one hyperedge, you don't know what's happening with the other hyperedge. So discrepancy problems are notoriously hard, and that is why we selected this for testing our quantum evolutionary algorithm. The good thing is that there's a lot of math background in this problem. Roth proved a lower bound of n to the power 1/4, but then this was disproved by Sarkozy, who also showed an upper bound of n log n to power 1/3. Then this problem was solved once for all by Matusik and Spencer, who showed that the upper bound also is O n to the power 1/4. But the algorithmically fundamental problem of computing a 2 coloring of discrepancy n to the power 1/4 remained unsolved. So this is a good problem to try algorithms because you know what the asymptotic order of the minimum discrepancy is, and the problem has all the structural difficulties which make computation of a low discrepancy coloring hard problem. Therefore, it's a challenging benchmark problem. If you take a probabilistic half-half coloring by flipping a fair coin to decide the color, you can do the analysis and show that the upper bound is n log n to power 1/2. Sarkozy came up with an algorithm where this returned an 2 coloring with discrepancy at most n log n to the power 1/3. So this was for 35 years the algorithm with the best performance in view of the discrepancy of arithmetic progressions. So what we tried to do was, we tried to improve these colorings. We started out with the Sarkozy coloring and saw whether we can improve the colorings any further by using our quantum evolutionary algorithm. And this is how we fared. The blue dots show the random half-half coloring, the green dots show the Sarkozy coloring, and the red dots show the improved colorings that we obtained. And we've tried this up to 3,000 nodes. The important thing that you need to note is that when you're talking about a hypergraph of 3,000 nodes, you're talking about a hypergraph with 27 billion edges, hyperedges. So which is not an easy to handle data structure. Now, we have also developed parallel version of this on a cluster of 192 workstations. We are trying this, and the usage of this parallelized code will enable us to extend our experiments to instances with more than 10,000 nodes. That's 10 power 12 hyperedges. So that was both the problems that I illustrated were for search spaces which are consisting of Boolean strings, that means binary strings, 1, 0. We've also implemented quantum evolutionary algorithms for real valued function optimization. And here, the operators have to be changed to deal with the real numbers, and the kind of problems that we have tried, this is the schematic of how the operator works. We move from the probability space to the real solution space using random number generation, and then finding out which way to turn our quantum bit for best results. And the kind of problems that we've attempted include those from power systems background, because I'm from Department of Electrical Engineering. People interested in power systems have used these algorithms for solving their power system problems. For example, the economic load dispatch problem is to determine the optimal loadings of generators so as to minimize the operating cost while satisfying the various inequality and equality constraints. There are lots of formulations where the objective function could consist of exponential terms, transcendental terms, and so could the constraints. So that makes the problem mathematically hard. So the real parameter QEA that we have designed that works, that compares favorably against a combination of evolutionary programming and sequential quadratic programming approach, and also a particle swarm optimization and an SQP approach. These are the results on a 110 generator system. In fact, one PhD thesis has been submitted in 2006 on lots of problems from power systems, including optimal power flow and unit commitment. And this can be referred to for anyone who's interested in working in this area. Now, this has been further extended by including superposition as well as entanglement in designing a new quantum rotation inspired adaptive crossover. This is part of the PhD work of Ashish Mani, who's sitting here in the audience. And here, what we're trying to do is, we're trying to use the second qubit as a feedback in parameter tuning free adaptive quantum inspired algorithm. Again, in the previous implementations, some parameter tuning is required. So now we are trying to get rid of that parameter tuning so that it becomes a more robust search mechanism. So I'm showing some kind of problems that we've done. One is a welded beam problem, where this is the kind of optimization problem that you are trying to solve. There are inequality constraints and also a set of objective functions that you're dealing with. Then compressed air storage tank, where this is a single objective function, but then again there are inequality constraints which have cubic terms, which makes the problem hard. Then this is a speed reducer, where you have inequality constraints and an objective function which is again cubic, and tension compression spring design, and the last problem is Himmelblu's problem, where this kind of optimization problems are hard, where you have interaction between the parameters, like x1 and x2 are together in one term. That makes the optimization problem harder. So we have tried our RQEA on this, and it compares favorably with the other techniques which have been reported in the literature, including a particle swarm optimization. Okay, the last problem that I'm going to show is the problem that I'm doing in collaboration with Kiel, Germany. There is a future ocean cluster there, which is the largest systemic effort worldwide to understand the ocean's role for the Earth system. It's a cooperative network consisting of about 140 scientists, and DFG has funded to the tune of 36 million euro. So this is the paper we just presented 15 days back here in the same hall. And the problem is of parameter optimization of a model of oceanic carbon dioxide uptake. These are staggering statistics. This is the amount of carbon dioxide you have in the atmosphere. This is going in and this is coming out. And this is the amount that's there in the ocean. These are all estimated by the geochemistry guys, so not much is known about that. I don't know much about that. Then they also have come up with a differential equation model, which they call the NPZD model, where they're looking for tracers like nitrogen, phytoplankton, zooplankton, and detritus. And this is a pretty complicated set of differential equations that model the carbon dioxide uptake. And the idea here is that they have been monitoring the ocean for the last 6 years. So they have collected a huge bulk of data on all these parameters and also have a model. Now we are trying to find the optimal set of parameters that of this model that will fit the data observed, so that we can predict what's going to happen in the future. And if we can predict, then we understand the changes that we have got to contend with in the future better. For that, we have implemented a parallel quantum evolutionary algorithm. This again runs on their cluster of workstations. This is the general schematic where we use the MPI model, and we're thankful to Professor Aadhar for introducing the MPI model while he was there. That's been combined with automatic differentiation or local search, because QA alone is not sufficient to handle this kind of complexity. And the main observations are that wherever we start from, whatever be the set of initial points, we always converge to the same local optimum value, which is several standard deviations away from the measured data. So the conjecture is that we are hitting the global optimum because we are taking a couple of hours of computation time to hit this optimal solution. And there is another group working in England which is taking a couple of weeks of computation time, but yet hitting the same optimal solution. Different ways altogether. So the conjecture, although we cannot prove it as yet, that this is the global optimum value, and if so, then the ocean people have to revise their model, that their model is insufficient. So that's how, again, there is an interaction between theory and practice. So that's the significance of the contribution, that the extension of the NPZD model is required. We are also now trying to prove through some more math analysis that the optimal solution that we found is indeed global optimal. Work is going on in that regard. Thank you very much for your attention.